Ichigo awakens by Talacha in chapter 42. Hello friends, Wako Mundo, 5 years ago. Time passed seemingly for him, trapped in the eternal night of the endless desert of the land of the Hollows. It mattered very little to this this oddity of his kind, born bone white among his pitch black companions, born with only his eyes freed from his mask, while his brethren had their faces. He was alone in the world, and he was content to simply lay in his home of emptiness and thorns, simply existing like the single solitary tree of the sharp spines that he called his home. He forgot how long he laid there in the nothingness, but it didn't matter. Every day every day was the same until he felt a presence show up just outside of his tree. Wanting to determine the presence with his own eyes, the vassal loader slowly freed himself from the sharp spines that surrounded him until he freed himself from the comfort of the tree, from the empty tree. He only ever trusted what he saw, since his sight was since his only other sense aside from his spirit sensing. He slowly freed himself from his home to find a large cobra hollow creeping on a sleeping child that radiated Reitsu like a beacon. Interesting, the white hollow thought to himself as the serpent came closer and closer. The cobra caught sight of him and froze, looking between the helpless child and the vassal lord. It decided to take a chance and lunged for the boy. In an instant, the snake lost its head as the empty hollow decapitated. He was curious about the young boy, the first interesting thing since he discovered his home, and wanted to learn more about him. The small orange-haired child sleeping on the desert sands without any knowledge of the danger he was in. The hollow was painted, so he sat next to the boy, watching and waiting. More hollows came. The smart ones left while the rest were killed by the vassal lord. Hours passed until the orange-haired child started to move. He moaned and squirmed on the desert sand as he slowly woke. The two locked eyes with each other, green gazing into brown as the hollow waited. Instead of screaming or running or attacking, the child simply sat up and spoke. The boy said to the human bat hollow. He waited for a response, but got none from the being. He asked, trying to get a reaction from the bat. He knew he should be afraid, but he felt no danger from the humanoid hollow. No danger, no hunger, nothing. So the child felt no need to be afraid. He spoke to the hollow again and again, his mouth moving in different ways every time, but the hollow did not react, for he could not hear. Just then, Ichigo saw the tree of sharp spines behind the bat and got an idea. He stood up and took the hollow by the hand, surprising the lone light white being by the lack of fear or distrust in the boy, and put him closer to the tree. Once in front of it, the human broke off a needle and began to write in the sand. The symbols looked familiar to the hollow as he soon began to read the words being written in the sand. My name is Ichigo. Can you read this? The now named Ichigo offered the improved stylus to the bat. The hollow took the tool hesitantly and tried to copy what Ichigo did. After a few attempts, he began to come. It began to come naturally as he wrote a single neatly written phrase. Yes, he looked back to Ichigo, who was smiling up at him. Are you not afraid? The hollow wrote in the ground, offering the needle back to Ichigo. The boy shook his head before writing a new sentence. Why should I be? He returned the needle to the bat. I'm different, the hollow wrote. I've always been alone because of that. He returned his gaze to Ichigo, who started to write back. Then the boy closed his eyes and released the heavy pulse of his Reitsu. The hollow's eyes widened as he felt the mixed energies in that pulse. Dark and light, order and chaos, hollow and full. It was the paradox of itself. He found something amazing, something impossible of himself. He found himself to be one with nothingness and never any desires or cravingness. He found something that held substance, fullness, a meaningful existence. Ichigo wrote something down. Something the hollow never once considered. What's your name? A simple question, one that never once crossed his mind in the centuries of his existence. He was without a name. He simply existed until he was asked that question and a name came to his mind. Ulquiorra Cipher. A time passed from that meeting. Ichigo worked on assessing his own hollow powers while Ulquiorra protected the hybrid in his training, never eating, never stopping his sentinel watch of his lone companion in this world. They talked, they interacted. Ulquiorra flew them through the air, which Ichigo told him about the living world. Ichigo learned to passively sustain himself on the ambient relation in the air of the Wako Mundo, but was struggling with the one important ability he needed. He was working on creating a garganta when Ulquiorra finally asked him, "What are you trying to do, Ichigo?" I'm trying to make a way home to continue my training. There's a really bad guy I'm supposed to fight when I'm strong enough. Ichigo rolled out in the sand. If he's not stopped, everything will be destroyed. Ulquiorra watched Ichigo's face, watching the continued shift of focused determination and childish innocence. He took the needle back and wrote out a different position. Is that your purpose? The Hollow asked, never leading a meaningful life and just existing. She shook his head and wrote his simple response. It's something I want to do. The young hybrid wrote, I want to protect all I can. The Ulquiorra watched Ichigo as the boy smiled at him. Ulquiorra kept staring at Ichigo for a few more seconds before standing up and tearing open a garganta. Ichigo stood up in amazement of the portal between dimensions, only to be picked up by the bat and pulled inside the portal. He then created a pathway for them to walk and gestured for Ichigo to lead. Hours of running passed until Ichigo found his way back to the world of the living. The two were on the streets as Ichigo looked around in amazement. He took Ulquiorra's hand and started to trace out the words on the Hollow's hand. Ulquiorra didn't feel it, but he recognized the pattern by sight. Thank you, Ulquiorra. Come on. He tried to pull the vacillator along, but for the first time since meeting, Ulquiorra pulled back. No, this is where we part ways, he told his only companion. I'm a Hollow. I do not belong in this world. Ichigo looked up to the bat with hurt in his eyes, but didn't let the tears flow. He needed to be strong. Will we ever see each other again? The boy asked the white bean. His expression never changed once since they met him. Maybe someday, he told the child Ichigo. I'd like to find my own purpose if I had one. Ichigo reached out to Ulquiorra's face and touched him. Past the broken part of his mask he never knew who was there. In his shock, Ichigo pulled Ulquiorra into a hug. The still and the Hollow didn't move until Ichigo released him and said something Ulquiorra still did not hear, but guessed the meaning. Goodbye, Ichigo. He forced out the part of his mouth that was exposed before fading back into Wako Mundo. Present day. It's good to finally meet you again, Ulquiorra said with an almost invisible smile as Ichigo slowly remembered their first encounter. You did a good job hiding your presence from me and Lord Aizen. He scanned over Ichigo again, trying to get a sense of the hybrid's power. Have you gotten control of your hollow powers? Ichigo was about to answer when Ishin spoke up. Ichigo, do you know this guy? The father demanded, wanting to know what secrets his son kept. Is he the one that kidnapped you as a kid? Ichigo shook his head, getting control over himself again. No, he's the one that protected me when I accidentally ended up in Wako Mundo. Ichigo replied quickly. It was when my hollow power started fluctuating the first time. I said I was merely teleporting outside. I really ended up in Wako Mundo, and he said while pointing to Ulquiorra, it's the hollow that protected me while I was vulnerable. Ulquiorra Sifa, last time I saw you, you said you were looking for your purpose. I wandered for a long time until I met with Lord Aizen, Ulquiorra responded. He made me an Arankar, broke me from my isolation. My path is to follow. Yami pulled himself back up and was about to charge until Ulquiorra threatened him. Interrupt this, Yami, and I will break you. The giant scoffed, but stayed where he was. So, you're my enemy? Ichigo concluded, feeling conflicted about fighting his old friend. And you're okay with this? Ulquiorra looked at him with the same blank, empty expression. I told you, Ichigo, I am a hollow, and you chose to be a soul reaper. This is nature, the bat said as he stepped back. Go ahead, Yami, he told his companion, who smirked and charged at Ichigo. Fine then, Ichigo muttered as Yami brought his fist down, creating a dust cloud. As his fist connected, he was chuckling at the ease and fun of crushing his small opponent as the dust slowly settled, only to reveal Ichigo blocking the attack with ease, his veins pulsing with reishi. If Aizen wants to see the power that will crush his army, I'll show him. Limit 1. Release. The air itself shook with the sudden increase in power. Ulquiorra's eyes widened slightly while Yami seemed to struggle with breathing for a moment. Ishin sighed and thanked his luck that Ichigo was given free rein to release his seal, otherwise his mountain of paperwork would keep growing. There was a series of pops as Ichigo clenched his fist, then brought his hands down, forcing open Yami's guard, who took a strong uppercut to his jaw. Impressive, Ulquiorra whispered as his companion was launched into the air. Do you think this is the same Ichigo? As Yami was back down and 20 feet away from where he previously stood, Ichigo flashed over to the fallen Arankar. To anyone else, Ichigo simply axe-kicked the large hollow into the ground. Ishin and Ulquiorra saw Ichigo slam his knee into Yami's back first, and then executing said axe-kick before the hollow got too high. After creating Yami into the dirt, he turned around and headed back towards his father. That better be one of your disposable grunts, Ukiura, Ichigo growled, knowing that Yami was slowly pulling himself out of the earth. Speed and skill was never Yami's forte, the white bat said. His tone was as empty as ever. Strength and durability, however, is, he said just as Yami rose back up. You little bastard, he growled in anger, his hand resting on his zanpakuto. Lord Aizen wanted me to test you, but he wouldn't mind if I killed you as well. He roared before charging a zero blast. Die! He roared as he fired the torrent of energy at the hybrid. Ichigo sighed as he brought his hand up and blocked the blast. The energy sprayed off like water. Ichigo focused on the zero reishi and began to pull on it like he does with Quincy abilities. Slowly, he took control of Yami's zero while charging at one of his own. Yami and Ukiura watched in shock as Ichigo held the concentrated ball, twisted energies, not even sparing a glance at his opponent. Ichigo aimed the ball away and released the zero. Zero doble, Ichigo whispered, launching the blast harmlessly. I'm not going to kill you yet, Yami. I want to embarrass you, Ichigo said, looking at the large round car like he was an ant. So next time, Aizen will send someone worth my time. As soon as the shock wore off, he went back to glaring at the hybrid. Ukiura recognized what Yami was going to do next and acted. Enrage! Yami yelled out, pulling out his sword. Ira! He called, only to notice too late that his arm was missing. He looked down to see Ukiura in front of him, holding the severed arm. Ukiura, what the... he was about to ask before the bat punched a hole into the brute's stomach. It's clear you cannot beat him right now, Ukiura told his companion. And if I didn't stop you, you would have caused Lord Aizen more trouble. He wants Kurokura town in stable condition, he said before opening Akaganta. We're returning. Now. He almost growled, reminding the giant which one of them called the shots. Yami hesitated out of fear of the smaller Alrod car before walking through the portal. Ukiura! Ichigo called out, stopping the white hollow. What's your rank? The hybrid asked, making his old companion face him. Ichigo opened his shihakusho to reveal his squad 1 and referring squad 15 seals. I was fighting at 60%, just so you know. The two continued to stare at each other before Ukiura responded. I am rank 4th, and Yami is 10th. He opened his white robes to reveal his number. I'll be sure to let Lord Aizen know not to send any more trash, he said as the barrier closed, leaving the father and son duel. So how strong is Ukiura? Ishin asked after a period of silence. Do you remember? He's the strongest Hollow I know, Ichigo answered his captain. Avasto Lorde. We need to report this. Las noches. Ukiura made his way to the meeting room where his master, a fellow Ronkar, had been waiting. He dismissed Yami to get patched up because he wasn't necessary for this part. He had seen everything and his eyes had never lied to him. He made his way to Aizen's throne, passing his fellow Espada with little regard. Some were interested in what he had to show, others didn't care too much, but only one had his attention, the Shinigami that made them a Ronkar, Lord Aizen. Well, Ukiura, the traitor asked his royal subordinate, what have you to show us? The bat orderly took out his left eye and crushed it, letting the specialized dust of his Solita Vista touch his allies and replay his memories. So, 60%, and he soundly defeated Yami, Aizen said after analyzing the memories. And you stopped him because he could use his resurrection because that would cause too much damage. Good judgment, Ukiura, he praised his subordinate. But instead of killing him, you ran away? A condescending deep tone echoed throughout the room. Or is it because you still think of him as a friend? Ukiura turned to see the cocky fool, open jacket with lean muscles and a hole in his stomach, light blue hair and green line under his eyes. If I was there, I would have blasted him to bits. Ukiura regarded the lower-ranked Espada with his ever-present stare. He's in the way, so it'd be best to kill him now, right? He called out to the rest of the Rankar. I will not fight Ichigo Kurosaki so long as Karakura town is in the area. The fourth Espada said with finality. If we did, we would destroy the entire city. Or have you forgotten the significance of that place, Grimjaw? Then we assassinate him, said the man at Grimjaw's side. He had a long face with his hollow fragment resting on his head and extending to a point on the right while it covered his upper left side of his face. A small, fast team to kill every major member of the Squad 15. Kill Ichigo fast before he becomes too much to handle. Some seemed to be in agreement until Aizen called for order. While this does raise some concerns of your loyalty, it also explains why you always volunteer to spawn him, he said, gazing down on one of his best. I leave the matter of Ichigo Kurosaki to you, Ukiura. Do not disappoint me. he commanded as Ulquiorra bowed his head, purposely ignoring Grimjaw's glare. Everyone else, tread lightly. Ichigo Kurosaki is not to be taken lightly. Urahara Shoten, Squad 15 base. From what we can conclude from Ulquiorra, there are at least 4 Bastolore Arankara in Aizen's army. Ishin reported to the head captain and his colleagues until further notice that unless forced otherwise, Ishin was to attend via video conference at the captain's meeting. The appearance of the Arankara put in everyone on high alert, and Squad 15 was the front lines for the Shinigami. It's very likely that each Arankara has a special ability, not unlike our own Sanpakutos, so caution is still advised, sir. Yamato and the more inquisitive captains pondered on these revelations. You should have had Ichigo kill that Yami Hollow. Yamato grumbled, worried about his student's judgment. And that Ulquiorra, are you sure Ichigo will fight him? All eyes turned to Ishin as he thought for a moment. These Arankara seem different from regular Hollows, he finally said after a moment, but to what extent, I don't know. Aizen probably figured that no less than a vassal Lord Arankara will be needed to fight Ichigo, which is something that could level the city. Either way, Aizen won't plan another attack for a while. Ichigo will probably try to turn a few to our side, and he might very well succeed. Ishin then met every single gaze from the other captains, but my son will not waver. He will do what is necessary. Yamato seemed to regard Ishin for another few moments before nodding. Very well. Stay on guard for the next attack, Captain Ishin. He warned about to call and ended to the meeting before Urahara said one last piece. And if you could please send me some specimens. The eccentric inventor spoke excitedly. Maruyuri and I are eager to see what we can find. A small shiver went through everyone as the feed was cut. Ishin let out a relieved sigh. One thing I didn't miss out about being a captain is how tense things can get. He whined while Hiyori came back in, eating a bag of chips. Oh, boo-hoo, she said through her snack. That cow Rangiku told me about how you barely did that job before. Ishin looked back at her, surprised by the contact between his former lieutenant and his comms officer. She calls twice a week to try to get a date with Ichigo, and says she's being a poor boyfriend. She shrugged as she took over her seat again. Now leave, Baldy, we've got stuff to do, she yelled, throwing her empty bag at Ishin's face. He potted and left, grumbling about paperwork, leaving Hiyori alone. He began typing a few things on her keyboard, accessing a file called ICOA. Soon the monitor camera activated, and she began recording. Video log number 6, Hiyori Sarugaki. The next day, Tatsuki and Ishin. The school day came and went with no incident. A small hollow here and there, but nothing major, nothing important. The officers of Squad 15 were all heading home for the night, except for one fireball. Tatsuki missed her captain's orders to head back home, her mind preoccupied with other matters. Ishin saw this and decided to step in. Tatsuki, he said, making her jump in surprise. It's late. You should head back home. Unlike most of the squad, you guys still have school to worry about. He let her head drop and let out a sigh. Just as she was about to speak, Ishin interrupted her. You worried about yesterday, aren't you? He asked, making her look at him in shock. I'm a father of 3, and I've been around for a long time, Tatsuki. I've picked up a few things in life, he said with a fatherly smile. Go ahead and tell me. She stared at him for a while before looking down. I froze, she said, uncertain and worried. I'm supposed to be one of the leaders, one of the people that can stand by her friends, and I froze in the face of the enemy. She turned up her face to gaze to her captain, looking like a scared child for the first time in her life. How do you do it? She pleaded. How does Ichigo, Uryu, or even Chada? How can you stay so calm in the face of stuff like that? She asked, the tears coming to her eyes. Ishin sat down next to her and looked the martial artist straight in the eyes. Listen, Tatsuki, he started in his dad's voice. I'll be honest. Your only life or death experience was when that hollow swarm attacked, and even then, you're so focused on other matters that you didn't focus on it. But you've had time to calm down, and you've learned that while you're powerful for a human, you are still human. He told her, keeping her gaze locked. You've learned to trust your reishi into fire attacks, and you're a capable martial artist. But there are things out there that are stronger than you, stronger than Ichigo right now. But they face that kind of danger often, while you've only done so once. By all accounts, you shouldn't even be a seated officer. And she looked at him with betrayal and hurt in her eyes, but he held fast. But you're still here because Ichigo believes in you. Orihime believes in you. Yoruichi and Soifon both think you have what it takes, just like me. Slowly the hurt melted away from her eyes. We have the faith. You just need to have some in yourself and prove you are capable, he said before the alarm started going off. Preferably later, but sometimes the enemies are jackasses, he said as he went out the door. Toskicha following automatically. Once outside, they saw a tall, thin man with a long face and an odd hollow mask with a large, fat man whose face was half covered by a skull mask. Orihime. And so, can you explain something? The barrier maiden was making her way home and conversing with her spirits about her powers. Why did you say you're my powers if you're my brother's contracted spirits? Was anything I did really me? She asked nervously, concerned about whether she was a help or a burden to her friends. Oddly enough, it was Tsubaki who explained things to her. Of course, it was Orihime, he said in a calm tone, surprising the other spirits and their mistress. Your brother contracted us, but ordered us to be your Shikigami, unlike you. Until you were ready to begin your training. Doing so put us in a mutual relationship where you supply the power, we supply the action. In short, yes, you do have the power, Orihime. Now it's time to get the training. Let's make that later and surviving is today. Shuno said just as Orihime sensed something coming at her. Santen Kushin, she yelled, just as a man with a bulk helmet shaped like a hammerhead shark's head and bandages on his right side tried to stab her with his hand. The shield held him off, making him jump back and smile, showing off a disturbing row of square teeth. Looks like I'll be having some fun, he said before laughing. Chad. So, a wrong car, I take it? And Chad asked on his way home. When he appeared, he was larger than Chad, long red hair on one side and shaved black on the other. His hollow mask looked like a pair of sunglasses rested on his face. Yep, and I'm here to kill you, he said, smirking confidently at the Fullbringer. Sato rolled his shoulders and stretched a little. You can try, he said before flaring his Reiatsu. Uryu was making his way back home himself, contemplating a letter he found in his locker. We are not your enemies, we are kin. When you're ready to speak with us, go to the fourth field. It was obviously left to him by one of the Quincy's that came to his school. But what is their aim? If they wanted to recruit them, why did they take Ichigo twice? He needed to get answers, but he couldn't go in there blind. He would wait until this matter with Ronkar had settled down before informing Ishin and Ichigo. In the meantime, he'd crush this blonde, lean hybrid that got in his way. Hello, brother, the Ronkar said in a sarcastic tone. I'm here to kill ya. Uryu looked over his opponent, long blonde hair, hollow mask that seemed like a broken helmet, and he already annoyed the Quincy. I'm positive that was meant to be threatening, he said while adjusting his glasses, but it only works if you're actively threatening. Ichigo was the only one that still patrolled the area. He was sitting on the edge of one of the higher buildings when he felt the sixth Oran car entered the city, watched as they all went to his allies, and waited for the strongest of them to come to him. His patience was rewarded when a blue-haired, lean-looking punk with a hollowed mask covered the right half of his jaw. So you're Ichigo Kurosaki? He asked condescendingly at the hybrid. The one that made Ukiyo run off? Ichigo sighed as he got up. This better be worth my time, he grumbled under his breath. And who are you? Name's Grimjaw. Jack, Espada number 6. Ichigo cracked his neck as he prepared to fight. Adorable, he said, making Grimjaw glare at him. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers, plans for the SMA. After the lieutenant change of the Shinigami Men's Association hierarchy, i.e. hostile takeover, Uryu got to planning some big changes for the association. First order was removing the dress code of sunglasses and open jackets. This met some resistance, which met Uryu's fist, which killed the protest rather quickly. Next order was to restore their budget. Uryu planned on doing so by investigating what the Women's Association did to get their current budget. He was less than happy when he finished his research. No, and the Quincy growled in fury. You've made yourself a terrible enemy in me. The rest of the association cowered in fear of their treasurer and real leader. "Time to fight fire with fire," he said just as his phone rang. "Yes, Ichigo, it's for the club. Do it." "No, I don't think they'll mind." "I don't care if you don't want to do it. We're in the red because Iba is a spineless idiot. Just do it, you whore," he roared before hanging up. The rest of the men were looking at him in confusion. "Uryu, did you just pimp out my son?" Ishin said, turning serious and burning back with anger that did not affect the Quincy. "Modeling for an advertising firm," he said, brushing off the aggression. "Chocolate-covered strawberries." Everyone just stared in confusion as he filed more reports. They decided to never speak of it again. End of chapter 42.